All right, going to be playing two reg tables of 100 NL and just kind of explaining my thought process and trying to make sure to verbalize everything that I'm seeing and is going on here. Going through the tables and just tagging fish. I just saw this person min raise versus a turn bet, so I imagine that this is often a fish. Um, and then tagged some of the players that have less than 100 big blinds as well. Here with king three suited versus a limp, just going to check. Flopping bottom pair, backdoor flush draw, going to check and allow the fish to stab with a lot of different types of hands. They choose a half pot sizing, generally very weak. Um, I think we could consider raising with a hand like deuce three suited, 3-6 suited, those types of hands, 3-6 off even since it's a limp pot. For now, we'll just call. Turn pairs the board. They quickly check back. River's the queen. I think it's a card that they're going to bluff on at least often enough to be profitable, and they might just bluff some other hands as well. So we'll just check and bluff catch. Here with queen eight offsuit, just going to fold, even though there is a fish in the small blind. Don't want to play monkey in the middle. Folding ace deuce offsuit versus an unknown player type would probably open that versus a fish. This player posted, so I'd like to make a note of that. That's generally a week. I go ahead and use the blue tag. It's fish, but not sure what type of fish, like big deal fish or just like somebody who likes to get in there kind of weak. I think you could go either way with 9-7 suited. That's pretty borderline. So I'm just gonna fold and see how this one plays out. You get a caller in the small blind, which we'll make a note of and give them. Like I try to reserve the purple tag for like people I see doing really, really bad stuff or really obvious stuff. And like a lot of times these blue tags will turn to purple tags as the game goes on. Sometimes the blue tags will even get taken away. Like for example, this player might have just been flatting a hand like pocket fours in the small blind, which I think is reasonable, especially versus a fish. You really just want to get in there and um you don't necessarily want to three bet those types of hands, but you definitely know that the weaker players are making really, really big mistakes post flop. Um, so you want to be able to play those hands. Only playing two tables tonight because I want to be able to explain my thought process. I like to also something I'm doing more regularly is labeling somebody a reg, and I'll start with an orange tag, which is like just reg, don't know anything about them. If they're really good, then I will label them with the red tag. Um, Noticing here that this player raised to 2x from the button when before when they had posted they raised to 3x. I think a lot of things like paying attention to their pre-flop sizing and stuff really is important later in the game. Don't know why my HUD is not working. When they use the 2.5x open size, I like to go ahead and just label them reg until otherwise noted. Half pot on the river really isn't like a thing. It's not really a sizing that regs would normally take versus another reg. So I'm a little bit wondering about this reg tag. We'll leave it there for now, but we're going to keep an eye on them. King Queen offsuit. If we were in later position, I would ISO this fishier player, but in early position, notice that they used the 2.5x open this this time. This player min raising to 4 gets the purple tag. 3-6 suited, just going to go ahead and 3-bet this one versus a fish. Has some good post flop playability, and when they use this small sizing, I think it's really good to just go ahead and start start your to go ahead and 3-bet with a wider range. On this board, I don't necessarily expect to get a ton of folds, but I think it's good to just go ahead and leave our options open. So I'll start out with a half pot c-bet, just my typical size on these two Broadway two-tone boards. When the 8 pairs, that's pretty bad for our range. I think there's a lot of profitable bluffing opportunities on the river. Um, so if we check and they bet half pot, we might consider. So they lead. Turn is the lead. So we're a 3-bet pot, big blind versus small blind versus a fish with a turn lead. I don't think that this is a bluff very often. I think if they just had like a 10, they would just check here. They lead small, so my guess is that they have a weak hand that they don't want to play for a lot of money, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to get them to fold. So I didn't mean to time out, but I was going to fold anyway. All right, here we're definitely going to put in the squeeze up to 20 big blinds. Queen 5-10. So we flop top set. I think on this board, I like just a check. We can also bet small, but I don't think that accomplishes as much as we'd like for it to. I think if we check here, a lot of times villains will stab inappropriately with hands like King Jack or Ace 10 or Jacks looking for protection. So, we want to let villains, put in bluffs with hands that are weaker than ours. The interesting question is whether to call or raise, and I think because we're already such a low SPR, I prefer call. There's really nothing that can happen in this hand that I think is an issue to get it in here on the river, so we'll just call, keep their bluffs in. Hands like Ace Jack are definitely a concern, although I don't know that they're just going to be betting Ace Jack here. Like, I don't know that that's going to happen often enough. We were multi-way, and like often villains are just going to check a hand that's like, okay, so here, if they've got Ace Jack, they've got Ace Jack. It's not a big deal either way. Okay, so we just cooler them. Opening 3x at minimum on the button with two fish in the blinds. Here on this board, I don't know that we're going to get enough folds. I think we'll stick with our usual 1/3. I mean, we do have significant equity with an open ender and a backdoor. Once our backdoor doesn't materialize, um, I think that we will just check back here. Like, we'd like for this to be a heart to continue to barrel. It's just a bad board to get folds on, even versus fish. When they lead 75% pot like very quickly, this is a clear fold. Like there's no I don't think we can profitably bluff raise here or anything like that. You know, I think it's a pretty clear fold to this sizing, especially. I think this is actually a pretty good sizing by this villain here. Once there's a flat in the small blind, unfortunately, A7 suit is just too weak to continue, and I don't think we're deep enough to do something like four bet at this time. So notice this large sizing that they took. Both pre-flop, they went to 9 big blinds over 2.5 big blinds. And then also post-flop going 75% on 10-10-9 two-tone. Here, just potting it. Clearly, they're not going to fold. Here, going to call with our king 10 off. Versus this sizing, this is just a fold. Here, we're in a similar spot to before where we're going to squeeze. This player overcalls a lot, so I think it's good to just go larger like we did saw 15 before. Flopping middle set again. Just going to start off with a check. Plenty of opportunity to get this in going forwards. Villain quickly bets half pot. Think we will tank for a bit and then just call. Again, the SPR is just such that no matter what, it's okay. If we get cooled off somehow, we get cooled off somehow. Now that we're out of position, I am concerned about them not putting it all in here with an ace, so we are going to go ahead and raise. Can also get it in versus a flush draw, versus a straight draw. Here on ace, ace, eight, two-tone. Just going to start out with a third versus a fish. They check raise small, min raise. I think this can be a lot of like ace X that is concerned. Some heart draws and just some random air. Like I think our hand is way too good to fold and not good enough to three bet, so we'll just continue with the call. Once they check turn, I think it's really, really good to just go ahead and bet and like target another ace, like a weaker ace X. Um, I think we can charge draws. I think we can charge a lot of hands that aren't folding. And if they check raise again, we could just let it go. Like they're not double check raising enough here to be profitable calling, especially like over a 75% pot size bet. Here on the three of hearts, I expect to see a lot of leads from flushes. I think we can still target some ace X. I don't think they're going to be turning themselves into a bluff here. So again, I'm just going to choose a small sizing exploitatively here on the river, targeting ace X. So once we get check raised, like I think we have a pretty easy fold. I don't think it's like a big deal. I think it's good to go ahead and bet this river. And we can just comfortably fold our hand here. This is the like reggish player that we have three bet many, many times. So we're gonna three bet them again. Hopefully they're getting sick of it. If they four bet, we'll just be calling in position. On 10-9-9, no flush draw. Just gonna start out with my standard 1/3 bet in position. I think you could go up to half here pretty comfortably. I don't think they're folding any pairs, so maybe I will actually choose half here. So I think this is a good sizing. Pretty much every pair that they call with, they're going to call again. Um, They shouldn't have any jack eight, so I'm not concerned about any straights at this point in time. I am a little concerned about pocket tens, pocket sevens, and pocket nines. So I think I do want to check back a street here. Yes, we lose value versus a hand like Jack Queen suited, but those can also just hit a pair and we can get it all on the river sometimes. Wow, we're just running super pure over here on this table, clearly. Once they check, I think they have like a very, very weak range. I actually wonder if something like a 10% pot size bet is good here. Trying to look like we're trying to get some thin value, and see if we can induce a raise. I'm going to go a little bit over 10%. There we go. It's exactly the reaction that I was looking for. I don't expect them to have a hand that can call us very often. Yes, we lose to quad nines, but obviously not going to be worried about that. Oh, quad nines. Wow. Holy cow. What a cooler. Well, I thought we were running pure. Here when the fish three bets, we're obviously going to call with our suited ace jack on the button, play a pot in position. Really nice flop. A lot of things we can do here. If they bet, they check, we're definitely going to bet. I think like obviously we have two overs and a flush draw, so we can easily get it in here. That's not a problem. For sizing, I'm going to choose a half pot sizing. I do expect to get check raised. I get a pretty high frequency here, but that's okay. I don't expect that we have fold equity, but we do need to see all five cards. So we're going to go ahead and put it in here and see what happens. We're now playing versus two regs, I believe, which isn't ideal. So I might just start another table here. Just I would like to keep my $195. Okay, here's a fish. I'd like to keep this on the table. Like I think it's good for a table image. I'm here with Queen Nine suited versus a reg, but with two fish in the blinds. I'm definitely going to get in there and play this hand in position. Any fish with less than 100 big blinds is going to get tagged. Just a standard purple tag. When they check, I think I can get value. Like I think our hand is pretty thin, but I think especially versus this fish, we can get some value. So I'm gonna choose actually a half pot C bet here, just because I think the fish is never folding any draw. I think they're never folding any pair, and I just think we can get a ton of value um, versus this fish. When they snap call and they don't consider raising, I think like we're oftentimes just definitely ahead here. Enough of the time to go ahead and bet larger on the turn and call it off. Oh, look at that. 2-3. We were right. They were definitely getting in there with any two. I think it could be debatable whether or not to call off there, but with so little behind and just knowing that they can have just tons of draws that they're doing that with, I think it's reasonable to call there. But I'll be looking at that one later for sure. Oh, I would have opened 3x if I had seen that this player was in the big blind, didn't look closely enough. Here, when the fish donks into me on this flop, just gonna start off with a call. I think a lot of their range is very weak. Once the ace pairs, I'm gonna be paying close attention to their sizing here on the turn. They choose a little bit larger than half pot. We have a flush draw, so I really do not want to raise this hand and then get jammed on and not realize my equity. So we're just going to call in position and play rivers accordingly. Once they bet half pot on the river, we did river a pair, but I'm not sure that it really matters in this scenario. I think they can sometimes be betting a 10. I think they would often check the turn if they had a hand like King Queen or King Jack or something like that. So as much as I would like to make this call, I think it's a better fold. Half pot, the reason I'm considering is because half pot is such a weak size. We can call with any pair to half pot, pretty indifferent, but we're blocking some of their draws. So I think I'm just gonna fold this one, even though I'm curious. I am curious. You guys can let me know whether that's a bad fold or not. Gonna try raising a little bit larger here. This fish is playing a ton of hands, and I'm hoping to just be able to get a little more value. Just see how they react. Versus a three bet, I am concerned with this hand, but I think it's still too good to fold, and we're pretty deep, so there's an opportunity to win a pretty big pot here. So we're just going to call in position and play a pot. This weaker player chooses a small sizing on a pretty dry ace high board. I want to keep in all their hands like 8-9, king jack suited, king queen suited, hands that are drawing super, super thin, tens, jacks, queens, kings, all those types of hands I want to keep in. So we're just going to flat our ace queen and play turns accordingly. When they check, I think that the range of hands that checks here can be super, super, super weak. So I want to bet a size that I know those hands will call. So I'm just going to choose a 25% pot size bet, but I'm actually going to go, I'm not even going to go $10. I'm going to go 9.89, just a little under $10 and just make it super enticing for them to call. The other option, of course, was to just check back that turn. Here multi-way, we just checked our threes. Villain leads 2/3 pot on this turn pretty quickly. I think the sizing's pretty concerning. I don't know that it necessarily screams that they have a 10. I think they would think a little bit longer, but I don't know that it's a good idea to get in here between this in the middle with a hand like this where we're not really sure what cards were safe for us on the river. The other option over here was to check back and bluff catch some rivers. I don't know that villain is always going to bluff the river. Um, Here we're going to exploitatively size down because they're so they don't have like a big stack left, so we don't need to put in like a ton pre-flop. Um, Single raise pots out of position versus fish. Just gonna start off with a check. Let them kind of blast away. Don't need to bet huge on this turn. I think basically all pairs are calling. So we're just gonna go half pot, make it real easy to get the money in on the river. Not the cleanest river in the world. Um, Could still get value versus the ace X region of hands. I think I'm just gonna put it in. I would hate to lose value here. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I can fold. And I worry that they're not betting. Um, I worry that they're not betting um hands that I beat. So, it's a tough spot as far as like betting or checking there with so little behind. They had four outs on that river and got there, so it is what it is when that kind of thing happens. Opening 2.5x with the queen nine suited. This player just quickly clicked it. I don't think that that always means they have a raisable hand, and I think our hand plays pretty well, especially when we flop top two. Um, so here we're going to go check to check raise. Um, Here on this river, I think we can bet pretty large and still get called by worse. They might even be able to just over bet this on the river, um, and get called by some like two pair type hands and things like that. With a limp from the fish and an ISO, we're just gonna call sixes here. I want to play in pots with this player, so we're just gonna call sixes out of the small blind and see if we can flop a set. Not the worst start to the hand. When they bet small here on the flop, I think we can go ahead and just call. We don't know what this player has. They could have a five. They could have a pocket pair above sixes. They might just want to play with any two. So we'll just proceed with caution in this spot. King is not one of the cards that I was hoping to see on the turn. When villain chooses 75% pot, I think we can just go ahead and fold our hand. Not a lot we can do um, versus a reg out of position in that spot. King five two tone single raise pot out of position versus a fish. Just gonna start off by checking. Villain checks back. I think we're going to look to show this hand down if we can. Going to place another check. When they check back, I think they have a lot of random like ace highs, um, queen highs. Maybe some of those queen highs would bet with a gut shot. I'm trying to decide if we can value bet or not thinly. Um, I think we can. I think we can get called by ace high in this spot if we value bet small enough. So, yes, we're going to get value owned by sixes and sevens sometimes, eights sometimes, but I don't think this can be super bad. Wow, chess calls with aces. Okay. Don't know what to say about that. That's pretty wild. Here, going to open any two, basically with two fish in the blinds. Get two callers. With no backdoor clubs, I'm just going to check this back and get some more information from these two players and play turns accordingly. Villain bets 2/3 pot. We'll just fold this hand. With both these villains behind me, just going to open to 3x here. Not too worried about the reg and the big blind when I have a hand as strong as Jack's. Flopping top set. Just going to be checking. Let's see. Normally I would check range in the middle, but I think versus two players, even though I'm blocking top pair, I'm just gonna bet. Like I think they're gonna call with any gut shots. I think they're gonna call with any pair. Here definitely going to three bet. Four, six, eight. Just gonna be going half pot or check, and I think this fits into our half pot sizing. On the turn, I think we are just going to check this one back and let villain bluff rivers. When they check, just going to be going pretty large here, targeting 10x. I think they're pretty sticky. I think once we check back turn, we're going to be perceived as not having the goods here. Thinking about overbet. Yeah, I like overbet. I think they're just going to get really sticky with certain class of hands, like 10x. When they fold that quickly, I expect that they just didn't have anything and we're never going to bluff. So maybe I should just be betting turn there. Definitely going to be three betting this. An 8-4-5, um, button versus hijack, reg versus reg. I am not going to have any 6-7, and they're going to have all the 6-7 suited. Um, don't think that this is a hand that I want to put in my betting range, and I would be checking back like a significant amount of over pairs as well. Um, we can just turn top pair like this and just see how villain plays. I still plan on playing this spot pretty cautiously. Think they can have all the sets. We only have eights sometimes. Um, yeah, I think this is a good hand to play defensively. So when villain checks, the type of hands that I expect them to check are a lot of like ace high type hands, sixes and sevens probably. I don't expect them to check any they can have nines, tens, jacks. Like I don't expect them to check any I think I'm just gonna go small in position, target nines, tens, jacks, maybe even some queens. I don't really expect them to check sets again, although it's possible with an overcard coming that they will check some sets. I think they're going to be pretty transparent with their holdings. When we river two pair, we're hoping we're up against like king queen here. That doesn't bet turn, which I think it wouldn't necessarily do so. Maybe like slow played ace king, that type of holding. I don't expect to see very many um very many checks from or very many slow plays from sets here. So I think we probably want to target the king X portion of their range, which we're blocking pretty heavily, but I think is an important part of their range to target. I think in that spot the options were bet small, which I don't really like doing in position on the river, or bet really large. And, I think they're comprised of mostly bluff catchers in that spot. And so, I want them to have to bluff catch, and I don't know that it's worthwhile to target the like um nines and tens region, queens region of their hands. Um I think it's just better to try to target some 10x and stuff like that. So, or I'm sorry, some king X and just try to get as much of the money as we can. Queen Jack offsuit. I think this actually plays much better as a raise than an overcall here. I think like button doesn't have to have much, and neither does small blind. So I would much rather squeeze in this spot than overcall a hand this week and try to play it in the middle. On 7-5 deuce, just gonna start out with a third here versus a fish. Here with ace six, just gonna call. It's a pretty good price, and we have an ace. Once we turn an undercard, I am just going to check this. I would like to see like an eight, a six, or something like that on the turn. Once they check back the turn, I think I will place a small bet, just targeting hands like 2x, hands like 3-4, some stuff like that. Just some weak hands that I think will fold for small bets. Yeah, so like, ace eight, not never gonna fold that there. Not targeting that specific hand. Got the pocket rockets here. This player is V-pipping super high, so just gonna start with a $3 open. 5-6-8 monotone, really crappy board for black aces. Definitely going to be checking back this board. Villain can have all combinations of two pair, tons more flush draws than I will. Just gonna be checking back and playing this one pretty cautiously. Once they check turn quickly, think they would consider a little bit longer with two pair type hands. They might check some hearts. So I do think we have an opportunity here to go ahead and bet. And I'm going to choose a little bit of a larger sizing, a 70% sizing, because I don't think they're folding any single pair hands. And they're going to be check raising like a lot of their good stuff here. So my plan here is to target a hand like Queen of Hearts X, 8x, those types of holdings with a bet here. I think we'll just go 70% again. Honestly, like I think a queen is never folding, and eight's probably not folding. So we'll just go ahead and bet here and expect to get called by worse pretty often. They called with sevens with a heart. Yeah, see how dangerous that flop was? They had the open-ended straight flush draw. But if you notice, they didn't take an aggressive action, even with a high equity combo draw like that. They just did not take an aggressive action. So my guess is that for future reference, they're going to be way under bluffing when they are taking aggressive actions post flop. We get a button ISO from a more reg type player. We're really deep with them. I don't want to isolate myself out of position versus the reg, but I do want to play 6-7 suited versus this fish. So I'm going to call in the big blind, expecting them to come along very often as well. Here on this board, I think I do want to have some leads, and I think flopping the nuts is one of the times that we do want to lead. The question is what size? And I think we want to lead like a 50% at most sizing. Once the board pairs and they thought so little about their call there, I think it's really important to trying to get as much money in as possible versus a hand like a6, do uh 3-5, like ace 5, just like hands like that just aren't folding. Yes, they can have some boats now, but they can also have a lot of hands that aren't boats, and you really just like flush draws, for example, things like that may not often won't fold versus even a larger sizing like 70%. And our hand is quite vulnerable on that type of board as well. We could also get it in versus trips on that board. So I think it's a pretty good spot for that size bet. And since we saw that they weren't bluffing enough with their high equity draws, it's better to just do the betting in that spot. Keeping an eye on this player here. They have less than 100 big blinds and haven't topped up yet. If we go around again and they don't top up, then for certain I'm going to tag them as a fish. Going to start off with a 1/3 C bet on this board. Can't really check a7 and try to defend it post flop. So I think it's a type of hand we want to start bluffing. Going to continue my aggression on the turn with 70%, which is my follow up size versus a fish. And when we see the king here, we are going to go ahead and bluff. We can fold out a lot of hands like 4-5, some pocket pairs, things like that. I don't know if Jack X folds or not, but I definitely think we have a target that we can fold. Wow. Okay. Well, making a note on this player that they're that sticky. You definitely want to take advantage of that type of play. They're going to be um, over defending, so you want to value bet wider versus that type of player. Here with ace 4, I don't think we want to raise pre-flop and squeeze. I think it's better to keep dominated draws in. Here on a7-5, I think they're just going to have either hands that they're going to give up with or hands that they're definitely calling with. Um, Here I'm going to bet river 70%. Nobody seems super interested in this pot, and if they don't have a 9, I think I get it through a lot. Just fold to a raise. Um, on this turn, I think that since I'm blocking ace X, I want to check back a street and I can look to get value on the river. When they check, I think they have a lot of showdown value type hands. I don't think that I don't think I really want to target a 7 or 5. I think I want to target like some kind of queen that stuck around, something silly like that, and ace X. So I'm just going to go pot here, um, and see if they get sticky with something. Ace 8. Going to end the recording, um, after these next couple of hands. Opening larger here, under the gun, even though a reg is on the button and in the big blind, just because we have these players that seem very weak, and they're calling too many hands. So we want to be able to play pots against them. Get min click raised here by this fish with an overlay. Um, I think it's okay to just go ahead and get this in here. Maybe not. I'm gonna be playing monkey in the middle with this reg behind me, so I think I want to drive them out of the pot. So we're gonna go for it here. Ace Jack on King 10-7 multi-way. I do think I'm going to start out with a bet here. We don't have like a ton of equity, and if we could fold out some hands like low pocket pairs and stuff like that, I think that's really great for us at this time. Flopping top pair on this board. I think we can go ahead and bet, even though the 9 pairs, it's not great for us. I think we're going to hear from a 9 often enough to not be super concerned about that. Here on this river, when they snap call the turn, I think we want to bet pretty large. Just go pot. Checking back turn here on the flush completer. Here on the 4 flush, I think we want to bet 70%, targeting a hand that doesn't have a club. And expecting that pretty much every club is going to call us here. All right, gonna go ahead and stop the recording after this Jack's hand. Gonna stop the recording. Leave me any questions that you guys have. Tell me what you think about the spot that we're in. I'm gonna start out with 50% here. Don't expect that they're gonna fold any gut shots or top pairs. Here we're gonna raise. When they min raise on the turn, um, it's a tough spot. I'm not folding, but I'm between call and jam. I think they're gonna trap too often with their 6x, so we're just gonna put it in here and hope they get it in with a 10. Oh, come on. What an embarrassing last hand to have. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I would expect them to trap more often with 6x, and I do think it's good to jam versus a 10. Like, I don't think a 10 is folding. And they might even just call it off with some gut shots and some things like that. So I don't hate the play. You guys can tell me what you think, and thanks for watching.